Hello, Mr. McGrath. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
Now, is it fair that Congress is still drawing a paycheck while hundreds of thousands are on a pay freeze?
No, it isn't fair, but it is a financial terror tactic, right? If we inflict a bunch of pain onto a million people, then they'll be more sympathetic to let us continue to spin our nation into oblivion. So this isn't a surprise. This is a standard operating procedure between both the Democrats and Republicans.
So, since the lawmakers' salaries apparently are not affected by the shutdown, do you
Of
think
course not.
this affects their willingness to even solve this problem?
Well, I don't know if it's the fact that they're still drawing a check. Most of them are multimillionaires, certainly doing far better than the average person in this country that they claim to represent in most cases. But I think they'll use this crisis as they've used other crises to get their agenda moved forward. I don't know that the fact that they're still drawing a paycheck doesn't motivate them. I think trying to get their political will done is the motivating factor for letting us shut down the government.
So, members of Congress are financially, anyway, faring year after year better.
Sure.
And we're obviously seeing that in the numbers, and it just seems like the ability of the legislature to get things done is deteriorating. Do you think there might be a loss of touch with reality up on Capitol Hill?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, we have 49, this is the United States of America, right? The richest country in the world. We have 49 million people who are living in poverty. 48 million of them are on food stamps. Now, the last government shutdown, 95, 96, what were you sitting at under $1 trillion in sovereign debt? Today we sit at $17 trillion in sovereign debt. 20 million people unemployed. Is there a disconnect? That is an absolute understatement. Washington, D.C., I truly believe, does not understand what the average person in this country is going through.
Well, instead of improving the lives of people domestically, it seems as if some of these politicians are only capable of playing at brinksmanship. Is that even what they were elected for? I mean, what are people saying about how out of touch with the need of the citizens these people actually are?
I think, most people, even in the mainstream, are starting to understand that Washington, D.C. does not serve the people that sent them, that elected them and sent them there in most cases. That's not saying all 535 members of Congress are out to get their constituency, but it sure seems like the people that stay there for decades at a time, that control legislation, that decide what gets to be talked about on the floor of the Congress or on the floor of the Senate, these people are there so long, it's obvious that they're special interest driven. They're there to make sure that they corral in the tax dollars for the special interests that help fund them and keep them in the position of power. So, completely out of touch. The people in this country will continue to suffer. We will see more austerity coming. We will see eventually, I don't know if it's this time, but down the road, a crisis with our dollar, a crisis with our debt, and a true government shutdown that's going to take most people, I think, by surprise.
Yeah, what you say is interesting about these people who are essentially career politicians.
Yeah.
Some of them, perhaps can't even remember the last time they didn't draw a government paycheck from serving up on Capitol Hill. Does this point to a fundamental flaw in the system, seeing as how many times a government shutdown or partial shutdown has happened?
My personal opinion is, yeah, it does show a flaw in our system. One simple thing that could fix a flaw in our system is simple term limits. Our president has term limits. Why don't we have term limits for our senators and our congressmen? These people sit there and they amass so much power and so much influence. But look what it does for the nation. It puts us in this stalemate, in this battle every 3 months or 6 months. And it literally terrorizes the people of this country, not knowing if our economy is going to implode because we're going to get downgraded by one of these rating agencies, or if we're going to spark a global economic collapse because we want to sit here and squabble back and forth in Washington, D.C. So, yeah, I think the system is flawed. We need to get special interest out of our system. We need to stop letting the financiers on Wall Street write the legislation that governs the financial market. We need to impose term limits in this country so we can get some of these career, lifelong, multiple decade-long politicians back to their states where they belong and let some true leadership in Washington, D.C.
All right, Charlie McGrath, live from D.C. Thank you so much for joining us.